Well, do you want to know the pros and cons of living in Smithfield, Virginia? Well, that's what we're talking about today, and we're starting right now. Hey, my name is Sam Sansalone, and I'm a real estate agent in Hampton Roads, Virginia. I love talking about real estate in Hampton Roads and just all the areas around here. And if it's your first time, welcome. Hit the subscribe button, the bell notification, and really the like button on this video, and that will tell the YouTube algorithm that I'm doing a really good job. Well, today we're talking about the pros and cons of Smithfield, Virginia. Well, this is an area that's kind of in the country. People that are looking for country access or country feel, but are moving to Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach, or up into the Peninsula area. They're looking for something that's more rustic, kind of more like just away from it all. People often look to Smithfield as an option, and people ask me questions a lot about Smithfield, and so I want to give some context as to what you can expect here if you plan on moving to this area as an alternative for getting closer to the cities. So we're going to get into the pros and the cons, things that I do and don't like about this area, and things that you should keep in mind if you do plan to move here. And I'll talk about some history about this area too, so if you do come here, you'll have a good idea. So we'll talk about the history first. This area is rich, as is a lot of this area, all in Hampton Roads, but Smithfield specifically. Well, Smithfield was first discovered, and it was a colony back in 1634 by, you may have heard this name before, John Smith, who actually was over in Jamestown. He found Smithfield in 1634, colonized it, but it wasn't until 1752 when this became an actual city. It was a pretty key spot back when they were settling this area because it was near a couple of primary rivers, the Pagan River and the James River, as you can see on the map. A lot of Victorian style houses, lots of that old architecture. There's even a historical board that meets to ensure that this area preserves the feel and look. All through there you'll see some historic churches, buildings that were built before 1800, still in the 1700s. There are some museums, and I'll put some information about places to visit, some museums to see while you're here, one of which is the Isle of Wight Museum, as well as St. Luke's Historic Church and Windsor Castle, which has a park next to it, Windsor Castle Park, which is the biggest park by far in this entire area. So now the pros to living in Smithfield. Well, first of all, it's country. And Smithfield is a smaller town, just over about 8,400 people as of 2018. So if you want to be in country, this is perfect because it's set apart miles away from the south side where, like for instance, Portsmouth, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, and Chesapeake are located, and up on the peninsula of this area too. So it's far enough away from both sections to where you don't really feel at all like you're even close to those spots. So if you're not a fan of the city or not a fan of the suburbs, come back an extra 15, 20, 25 minutes away from the edge of those areas and you'll start finding this place called Smithfield. The size of Smithfield itself is only about just over 10 miles, 10.4 square miles. So if you look at a map, you might think, well, what's around Smithfield? Is Smithfield the only place where I can find this kind of thing? Well, if you look around Smithfield, you'll see some other places too. Ben's Church, Carrollton, Isle of Wight, Bartlett is another example, and also Battery Park. There are some small little towns around Smithfield that still provide the same feel. You might not even realize that you're leaving Smithfield, but they still provide the same similar kinds of things. So if you do look for houses in Smithfield, check the other surrounding areas around it just in case you might find something you like there too. Now number two is, even though you're in the country, you have access to both the south side and the peninsula of Hampton Roads. You have some direct roads that go straight to Newport News. You're only about 15 to 20 minutes away from Newport News, taking the James River Bridge right there, up going north across the James River. Or you can go down south and southeast around towards the south side, which is where Suffolk, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, Norfolk, and Virginia Beach are all located, and you're about an hour away from most areas of Virginia Beach. It takes you about 40 to 45 minutes to get to Norfolk, and about 20 to 25 minutes to get to areas of eastern Suffolk and western parts of Chesapeake. But because these cities are so large, those numbers can change some. Now number three is the people are quite friendly. These people, a lot of them have been here for a long time. They've grown up here and understand the culture of Smithfield. Now, that being said, I'll put some links below to help you so you can see some reviews of people that have experienced Smithfield and explain what they do and don't like about it. And a lot of these comments you'll hear that the people are quite friendly. Number four, housing prices. They are cheaper than over in the south side, especially if you want property. Now, like a lot of the places in the south side don't have as much property, or the lot sizes aren't as big because there's so many more houses built over there. But for a $300,000-$400,000 house, to go to Smithfield and get that kind of a price for a house, you can get more for your money. That being said, there is a drawback. It's because this is the drive. If you do plan on working in the South Side, like Oceana, the Navy bases, you will have a longer drive from Smithfield to those areas. However, I will say though, if you work in the Coast Guard and you're stationed in Portsmouth, Smithfield is not too terribly far away and there's some direct roads to it. So this is an affordable area for homes for anywhere from 3, 4, 5 bedroom houses or more. There are some that are on the water that are really expensive, but that's just kind of how it goes with properties on the water in some of the prime areas of Hampton Roads. So if you get off the water just a little bit, you'll find some pretty affordable options. But at the same time, there are houses priced lower than $300, but you can find some nice housing in that low $200 price range, sometimes underneath $200,000 as well. It just depends on what you're looking for, and some of these are a lot older, smaller lots. Doesn't mean you can't find anything under $200,000, but your options really start getting more limited at that point. There are some houses that are over like $400,000 or $500,000. There's plenty, but there are some great neighborhoods in Smithfield. There's Gatling Point, Grimesland, Aspen Woods is one, Cypress Creek, Red Point Heights, and then Wellington Estates. There's several, there's a lot in Smithfield really, but some of these houses were built a long time ago and are still standing, but at the same time, there are plenty of houses built, new construction, for instance, 10, 20, 30 years old, that are in the 2,000, 3,000, up to 4,000 square feet range, and they're in great areas, and then they sell often from like $325 up to $425. A house like that in Virginia Beach might sell for $100,000 more. So there is value to be had in Smithfield, and these areas are real nice. Like the neighborhoods are great. So number 5, it is the ham capital of the world. So this is home, if you've ever heard of Smithfield Ham, this is where it comes from. Smithfield Ham is here locally in Smithfield, and really Smithfield food. Smithfield ham, what's funny is the definition is there's an actual specific type of ham that is a Smithfield ham. It comes from a peanut-fed pig from the peanut belt, which is actually in Virginia and in North Carolina. So it's a very specific type of ham, but it is known all over. And this is a pretty decent sized employer in Smithfield. And then here are some offices of Smithfield Foods. So you can see that it has a very distinct presence in Smithfield. Number 6 is a small town feel. Well, this area is known for its country and for this small town flavor. And I mentioned earlier about the historic aspect of downtown. Well, the downtown's just downtown. It's a small downtown, but there's a main street there, and there are plenty of like local events that happen over the course of a year. Farmers market. They have what's called the Smithfield Olden Days Farmers Market, and they have a Christmas parade. And there's a Smithfield concert series put on by the Isle of Wight Arts League. They'll have concerts out on Main Street that are free to the public. So this year I'll put the calendar for the summer of 2020. Now the cons to living here. There are some cons. One of which, well, country, it's small. So if you want something action, you want lots of stuff going on, you want lots of people running around, this is not the place for you. It's quiet, it's wonderful if you like quiet, but if you do want access to Ghent, for instance, to Virginia Beach, the ocean front, anywhere on that side of town, you're gonna expect to drive to get there, and that just doesn't fit a lot of people's styles. So if you're not trying to save the money in the housing, you might find that you might drift back towards Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, that whole area, if you wanna be closer to everything else that's going on. Number 2 is kind of similar in number 1. Well, there's not a whole lot to do. There are the things like I mentioned earlier in the downtown area that happen infrequently, and then there are parks that are in this area too, like I mentioned Windsor Castle Park, which isn't really a big park actually, a nice park, but there's not a lot of it. So you might find yourself driving back towards the south side if you do want to be around more stuff, especially downtown Norfolk. But if you want nightlife, don't come to Smithfield. Number 3 is the job opportunities are not as high over here. There's fewer of them. Now, I mentioned Smithfield Foods, which is the largest employer in this area. There are some other places in and around Smithfield, but especially like for instance the bases in Portsmouth and areas up in Newport News and Hampton, but specifically in Smithfield you're not going to get too much, so the drive to work might be longer unless you have a job at Smithfield Foods or some other smaller locations in the town. Now next is the schools aren't really highly ranked. So if you look on niche.com for instance, you'll see lots of schools ranked higher than Smithfield. Now for schools, there are a couple of elementary schools I'll mention first, which is Hardy Elementary and Carrollton Elementary, and then also Smithfield Middle School and High School are in the same complex as you see right here. Those are the 2 middle and high schools. Now they're not ranked as high, and so I'll drop a link on niche.com so you can see what kind of the reviews people are giving these schools are. But I will say that even though they're not ranked super high, they're competing with a lot of areas that are really some of the best in the state, like for instance over Virginia Beach. So it's more so that they're maybe not as ranked high as those, but do some research and see if these are right for you. But I can't say that the people would come out of their way to come to these schools or vice versa either. Now the next con is the lack of restaurants in Smithfield. But compared to all the cities in the Hampton Roads area outside of Smithfield, there just isn't as much, and that's just due to the fact that it's a small town. But one thing you'll find there is several pretty good barbecue places, and interestingly enough, a couple of good taco places too. And I'll drop some links below of some restaurants that I would check out. Now the next con is shopping. There aren't too many bigger shopping options in and around Smithfield. There is a Kroger that's kind of near the middle of town, but if you're looking for a Walmart, you're talking 20 to 25 minutes to the closest Walmart. Then the closest one probably would be in Newport News, right across that James River Bridge. There's another one maybe about 25 minutes away in towards the eastern Suffolk area. And the same goes with Target. The closest Target is probably about 25 minutes away up into the Hampton area, crossing the James River Bridge on the peninsula, or maybe about 25 to 30 minutes away down into the western Chesapeake area. So neither of those give options close by. If you do plan to go to Smithfield, know that the driving distance to plentiful accessible shopping is at least 20 to 25 minutes bare minimum. I will say that there are some shops, some stores in Smithfield. It's not that you can't find any at all, it's just that you're not going to get nearly as much as if you go that extra 25 minutes away. There are lots of pros and cons to Smithfield. I hope this can help you, but if you want more information about moving to Hampton Roads or different cities in this area, I've got all kinds of videos. I'll put more here, and you can click on my YouTube channel to see all of them. And if you have any questions about this area, or if you'd like me to help you move to this area, please let me know. I'll drop my contact information in the description, phone number, email, Facebook message, whatever is the best for you, and I'll do whatever I can to help you relocate into this area. And I will see you on the next video.